French President Emmanuel Macron alongside our President Cyril Ramaphosa at the Union Buildings, walking there on that red carpet. We are expecting a press briefing shortly. Of course, the French President visiting South Africa for an official state visit. He's, of course, meeting with the President at the Union Buildings. They're discussing deepening bilateral cooperation, COVID-19, economic recovery, as well as peace and security issues on the continent. As we know, France is a major investor in South Africa and a significant partner, but also not just in South Africa, as well on the continent. Interestingly, it does seem that Macron, or France rather, are attempting to build bridges and reform the Africa-France relationship. The French president, in fact, visited Rwanda on the 27th of May for another such trip. Let me just pause for a little while. I assume there is something that is being said at this time by the President.
What the lady is saying.
Yes, this is all. We are women from every part of South Africa. That's March 20,000.
Good afternoon.
We are women of every race, and they are from all the races, from white, Indian, colored, mulatto.
I don't know, should I just...
All here. And this is what we
It was
had a
put in
message.
1994.
Yeah, after World after 1990. That was a powerful message.
Sorry.
Mr. President. Excellencies, the President of the Republic of South Africa and the President of the French Republic, honorable ministers and senior officials, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now witness the signing ceremony between the Republic of South Africa, represented by Honorable Minister Nzimande, and French Republic, represented by Minister Le Drian. They will be signing the agreement between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the French Republic on scientific, technological, and innovation cooperation. Honorable ministers, can you please take your positions for the signing ceremony? Thank you.
It's a little bit chilly, but this is our weather. Yeah.
Thank you, honorable ministers. I shall now hand over to Mr. Tyrone CL to conduct the press briefing. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Presidents, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Bonsoir to our French visitors. You're most welcome to this interaction with our two presidents. We have 4 questions lined up. The first 2 questions will go to our visiting President Macron, and the very first question comes from France 2.
Bonjour Messieurs les Présidents, Nicolas Bertrand pour France Télévisions. Une question qui vous concerne tous les deux. Le nord du Mozambique est en proie à une insurrection djihadiste depuis des années qui s'intensifie et elle menace tout le développement économique de la région. La SADC pourrait intervenir. Est-ce que la France, concrètement, pourrait soutenir cette intervention sur le terrain, et notamment avec la Marine nationale?
This intervention on the ground, in particular with some support of the French Navy.
No, I didn't get a translation. Sorry, my French is not so good on.
I don't know if there is a translation for. The question was about Mozambique and the potential French intervention on the seaside under the umbrella of SADC. So I will answer in French, and I think the question was as well for you and Mozambique situation.
Okay. Okay.
Peut-être. Donc je vais passer en français pour vous répondre. Non, vous avez évidemment raison de souligner l'importance de la question du Mozambique.
Of the issue of Mozambique.
Nous en avons
and we discussed it
avec le président.
A moment ago with the president.
La célébration des oiseaux.
Oh, the birds are with us.
Donc nous en avons parlé un instant avec le président.
A few minutes ago, we talked about the situation with the president, and I had an opportunity last week to meet the president of Mozambique, who attended the summit we organized in Paris on the financing of African economies.
Je vais juste attendre 2 secondes pour que le président puisse.
Briefly pausing to make sure that President Ramaphosa can hear me. On this matter, we are well aware that Mozambique is currently dealing with jihadist groups which are currently threatening the security of the region, in particular in Cabo Delgado. We've been, of course, monitoring the situation with a great deal of concerns, and France's willingness is to remain extremely coordinated, of course, with Mozambique and the countries in the region. We are available to help, but within the context of a political solution, which, first of all, should be requested by Mozambique, second, structured by SADC. A meeting was held yesterday, as you are aware, and I will leave President Ramaphosa to tell us about it, given that he attended the meeting and is playing a key role in this matter. But should the decision be taken to launch intervention of SADC to restore the full sovereignty of Mozambique on the whole of its territory, France is available. We stand available to contribute to operations, Navy operations. But let me underline that given our strategy, our Indo-Pacific strategy and our regular presence, given the fact that we have some French territories, Mayotte and La Réunion, on a regular basis, we have some frigates as well as some other vessels in the region, and they, on a regular basis, organize operations, so we could be available and very quickly so if requested. But the heart of the answer, it should be an African response at the request of Mozambique and coordinated with the main neighboring countries.
Thank you, President Macron. In relation to this question of Mozambique, indeed, we held a summit, what we call a double troika summit yesterday. We discussed the situation in Mozambique extensively and started off by receiving a report of the technical assessment team that had been sent to Mozambique. They informed us of their own analysis and understanding of the situation. And in the course of the discussions, we listened very carefully to Mozambique's needs, and they articulated them very, very well indeed. And SADC stands at the ready to assist Mozambique to ward off these insurgents and to ensure that we return and restore peace and stability in Mozambique. We also deliberated on Mozambique's requirement as a sovereign state to get help from other parts of the world and to engage in discussions with others. And they informed us that they have been in discussions with others, but obviously would want endorsement from SADC in order for them to gain their assistance. And that is precisely how assistance from France will manifest, because there's humanitarian assistance that is needed, where countries can pledge solidarity with Mozambique. There is assistance that is needed of an economic nature in the area, which is quite depressed economically, but there's also technical assistance that is needed to capacitate their armed forces, and there's various other forms of assistance that they require. So they will be discussing this with various other partners, and they will then be able to take things forward. We welcome France's stance on this, that they would obviously, much as they can offer assistance, they would want to work in collaboration and in cooperation with the various, the body in the region, as well as with Mozambique, recognizing that Mozambique is a sovereign state that is facing a huge challenge at the moment, and whatever assistance that they will be required to offer will be offered on the basis of two countries cooperating as two sovereign states. So thank you very much on that.
Thank you, Mr. President. We will now have the South African Broadcasting Corporation.
My question is directed to President Macron and President Ramaphosa. President Macron, your first stop was in Rwanda. Africans have been following your trip down to Africa. You extended an apology to Rwanda based on the genocide of 1994, but Africans are saying you didn't go far enough in really showing remorse and a straight apology, not a forgiveness. And I think President Ramaphosa can also weigh in. Africa is very sensitive in terms of these relations, and at times they really want to see genuine apology based on what transpired during the colonial era and the apartheid era.
Je vais me permettre de vous répondre en français, ce qui me permettra d'être plus précis sur un sujet aussi délicat que celui-ci.
I will be answering your question in France because it's a very sensitive subject, and that will allow me to be more specific. Today with President Ramaphosa, we talked about precisely the importance of having a vision for the future of Africa. And let me tell you how much I'm convinced that for the generation to which I belong, of European leaders, it is one of the most important decisions. And I turned this into a key element, not just of the French foreign affairs policy, because of our own policy, because France is, our country is fed by all of these diaspora, all of these Africans who have a lot of contacts and connections with France. And I'm convinced that what matters is to make sure that Africa, as a continent and a family of sovereign countries, to help them or to support them to the extent that we can, to make sure that their youth can succeed. In this context, there are a number of situations of the past which are still there, if I may say, but each of them is different, and we shall, I believe, be prudent in order not to mix all of the African issues. I believe there is a common destiny for Africa. That being said, when you look back at history and remembrance, there are many issues as there are situations in Africa. The issue of the Tutsis in Rwanda has nothing to do with colonialism. It's very different from the situation of South Africa. It is very specific, and I covered the matter in great details yesterday. What matters to me is the way President Kagame and the way the Rwandans themselves received what I said. And I have a feeling that they felt that I respect them and told them the truth. And this is what I'm doing. Of course, there are always people who can say that we should be doing much more because there is the past between the African continent and the European continent, which is includes all of this resentment and what is said and what is not said. But if you mix everything, we will not sort out anything. So please allow me to put the issue of the genocide against the Tutsis in 1994 back into the very specific circumstances. And what I told to the Rwandan to people of Rwanda yesterday, and I will not repeat everything that I said, but I would like to tell you that I very totally sincerely tell you that I said what I very much believe. And I believe that sincerely as well, President Kagame said that this is what they were expecting.
Thank you, President Macron. I'd like to say that I discussed this matter with President Macron, and he explained to me precisely the stance that he and France are taking on all this. And they're doing it with a degree of genuineness and explaining the role and admitting to some of the mistakes that were made. And I think we should be pleased that there is now rapprochement between Rwanda and France on this matter. They are discussing the issues. And President Macron has been brave enough and courageous enough to go to Rwanda and deal with the issues that have caused a great deal of pain to so many people in Rwanda. And I'd like to say that they need time, they need to be given the opportunity to work through the issues. And I think President Kagame, in accepting the statements that were made by President Macron, is indicating that they are willing and ready to engage with France, because what happened in the genocide has caused a great deal of trauma and pain, and has also sullied the relations between two wonderful countries. So they need to find a way of getting closer to one another. And all we can say is that we want to wish them well. We've been over the years working through our own historic pain of racism, of colonialism, of oppression, and we can but wish them the best as they too have to work through all these challenges that beset their country and their people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have two more questions before I will invite the presidents just to give us your impressions of the talks you've had this afternoon before we proceed to the second part of this program for the state visit. Our next question is from Europe 1.
Messieurs les présidents, bonjour, Jean-Rémy Baudot pour la radio Europe 1. L'Afrique du Sud a demandé la levée des brevets des vaccins Covid. Monsieur Macron, vous avez souvent répété que ça n'était pas une priorité.
On COVID-19 patent, President Macron, you said that was not a priority and it was more important to work on increasing production. Is this something you disagree upon? Second, President Macron, any reaction to the fact that a police officer was attacked in France this morning? Well, first on the second question, I've been in constant contact with the Minister of the Interior in France and myself, but I will not comment here on some event taking place in France. But of course, my thoughts are with the police officer, the lady who's been stabbed this morning, and my thoughts also go to all of her colleagues, and we'll do everything we can to prosecute those responsible. As to your first question, trying to lift the hurdles in order to allow vaccine productions in South Africa and all around in Africa, we are in favor of all of that. That being said, let me always go back to the same thing. What are we trying to solve? What is the problem we're trying to overcome? What we need to do is to vaccinate as soon as possible, as many people as possible. And we need to cover the largest population around the world. It is a matter of duty, of solidarity, and we need to support the countries with which are the poorest countries or with an intermediate level of revenue. And the more time it takes, the more the virus is likely to mutate and to come back. So against this background, the first solution is the first thing to do is solidarity and giving over some doses, so that we do not keep some surplus of doses in rich countries, and these should be sent to other countries. And this is under the umbrella of the ACT A initiatives that we launched together with President Ramaphosa at the time he was chairing the African Union. And this is the absolute priority, and we shall do more on that. And it is against this background that France committed to giving at least 30 million doses by the end of the year, and will continue to increase that goal. And here I believe we shall continue to do our utmost. Second thing, it is about enabling to produce more in the existing plants and to increase the capacity, the capability of the existing stakeholders, because it is a necessity to produce more vaccines, in particular in Africa. There is a very simple figure that will illustrate all of that. Africa is about 20% of the needs and 1% of the production. So how can we do that quickly? Well, by relying on the existing capacity in Africa and in increasing our investments and increasing the capacity. This is very much what we will be announcing together later on this afternoon, because in South Africa there are some stakeholders, some in biotech or the pharmaceutical industry. They are very strong. So we have a partnership with BioVac, and Sanofi, the French company, is one of their partners, and will launch a very structuring partnership with Aspen, a major South African company group, which is also present in France. So this is the second pillar, how to speed up production of vaccines on the African continent. And in this respect, this afternoon we'll very much put in place an investment strategy to support the industry to produce more, in particular the industry in South Africa. And third element, how do we help, how do we support all the countries that are in a position to do so? How can we help to produce the new vaccines as quickly as possible? Of course, even if you sort out all the issues of intellectual property or industrial property, it will take 2 to 3 years, because here these are some new technologies that may not necessarily be adapted. So we need to do it, but it will take time. On this issue of intellectual property, two things. First of all, in the past, we already had to deal with the matter, and South Africa played a key role in the matter. At the time, we were fighting HIV. We're still dealing with HIV, and the therapy were so expensive that the poorest countries had no access to it. It was a great battle waged by your country, Mr. President, and thanks to that, we adapted our intellectual property in the field of health, and we, as a result, have a number of exceptions. This is what is called the TRIPS Accord that enable to use these exemptions. But today, it's not normal, but we're not able to use these existing exemptions when it comes to COVID-19. So the first solution, the first way, and that's the mandate we gave to Ngozi, who is the head of the WTO, and to the WHO as well, how to use how to make sure that intellectual property is no longer a hurdle and no longer prevents the transfer of technology. And if we cannot use the existing regulations, then I will support a waiver, the second solution. Let us waive the patent for all of the vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, for the duration of this crisis. But according to France, intellectual property shall not in any way, shape or form be a hurdle for the transfer of technology when it comes to the vaccines. We'll be working this afternoon with the vaccines patent pool, and we decided to support together an initiative on this matter at the G7. I fully share the battle led by President Ramaphosa, and Prime Minister Modi of India agrees as well. We shall produce as soon as possible, and there should be no IT hurdle. But before that, let me tell you as well that we need, when we talk about barriers, we need to have more transparency. We're paying a lot, we're giving a lot of money to many structures, but we do not know how much is being paid to buy these vaccines, and we suspect that the poorest are paying the highest price. So in our system, we also want responsibility and transparency in all international mechanisms for the prices. I hope that this is clear, but I very much wanted to go into the details because it is an essential matter.
Thank you very much, President Macron. I didn't hear the first part of the question and what you said, but what you said...
He asked about the waiver on IP.
Yes. What you said in the last part is like music to my ears, because I like the convergence of our thinking. When we first raised the issue as South Africa and India, we were arguing for a waiver, which we continue to put forward, that let us have a waiver for the duration of the pandemic to enable countries to be able to gain capacity and manufacture and produce vaccines. Because the vaccine, as we call it, nationalism, or vaccine apartheid, is working in such a way that only a few are getting the vaccines on an unlimited basis, and the countries that need vaccines the most are not getting them. For instance, on the African continent, only 2%. 2% of people have been vaccinated, and yet in the northern countries, the United States is almost 40%, and many others at a higher level. And the real challenge we face is the unavailability of vaccines. The more well-endowed economy countries have bought most of the vaccines, and they are hoarding them. They are holding them close to their chests. And we are now stuck because of a whole number of reasons, but more importantly, we don't have the availability of the vaccines right now as we need them. So it is for that reason that we've called for the waiver of the vaccine, of the TRIPS at the WTO. And I'm very pleased that President Macron has taken this message to heart, as he often does with many other challenges that we on the African continent face. He's taken it to heart and is very supportive. What they have now come up with is something that we can work with. One is to capacitate a number of countries on the continent to be able to manufacture their own vaccines, but at the same time to move ahead at the WTO that this matter of the waiver should now be considered, and considered seriously. Because on the one part it can be an exemption that does not lead to transfer of technology. What President Macron and I agree on is that there should be transfer of technology, and the waiver would amount to that as well. So it is important that capacity building should not just be through just giving either a license or whatever. It must result in the transfer of technology, of knowledge, so that countries on the African continent should have the capacity. Now, how many countries on the African continent would have the capacity? There are quite a number. I've been talking to a number of presidents who tell me that they will be able to build up capacity as quickly as possible. South Africa does, and a number of other countries do have the capacity, and those that may seem not to have it, they can build it up very quickly. So it is important, and I know that it will take some time at the WTO to finalize this, but at the same time, we welcome the assistance to build capacity so we can follow the two-pronged strategy, the two-pronged process. We get assistance to build the capacity, and at the same time, we continue with the discussions at the WTO. President Macron and I have agreed that this is what we are going to advocate at the G7. And I'm happy to work with President Macron in this regard, because this matter must not be used as a barrier. As he correctly said, South Africa led with regard to the antiretrovirals for HIV, and in this regard, we're not only working with India, but we're working with many other countries around the world. And we're very pleased that the views that we are putting forward are converging with what President Macron is saying, and there are quite a number of others as well. So we will be seeking to convince more and more people about the correctness of the position that we are putting forward, because this will be a game changer for Africa when we are able to manufacture vaccines and do not have to wait as we are waiting now. We do not want to wait forever whilst people are dying. So this for us is very important. But President Macron supports us.
Thank you. We have one question before we ask you to just reflect on your discussions this afternoon. Newsroom Africa.
Good afternoon. My name is Mbali Tetani from Newsroom Africa. My question goes to the President of the country, Mr. Ramaphosa. You know, when you look at this visit, what forms a part of it most is the issue around COVID-19 and the vaccines. And something that has plagued your cabinet is, of course, the issue around, digital vibes, and has also concerning the Minister of Health. There are a number of political parties and formations calling for the health minister to step down because of these allegations, of course, looking into irregularities there when it comes to that contract. Just want to find out, what is your response, Mr. President, to dealing with this issue? It is in the midst of COVID-19. It does relate to that. I know that the SIU is looking into this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbali. The very last statement you make, that you know that the SIU is looking at this matter. SIU is a special investigation unit, President Macron, that investigates maladministration, corruption, and malfeasance in government. So I'm waiting for the SIU to finish their own report. There has been a preliminary investigation at the departmental level, and the minister has briefed me, and I'm now waiting to see how the SIU will conclude on this matter. And I know that they are working quite fast and feverishly to come up with a report. And I would say that until that has been done, I'd like to be given the time to consider what they will come up with, and thereafter we will be able to handle the matter. So, and I hear that there are various calls that are being made, and I've heard them, and I'd like to see the SIU report and to look at the matter quite closely myself, and thereafter we will take the matter forward.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to invite President Macron just to reflect briefly on the discussions today, and you'll be followed by President Ramaphosa. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Dear President, dear Cyril, first of all, thank you ever so much for welcoming me here in your country today. Let me tell you how honored and pleased we were with your presence in Paris last week in such dire circumstances, but you did attend the conference on the financing of the African economies. Next, of course, myself, I'm honored and moved as well to be with you today. Honored because this is a very important visit for our countries. I was able to accept your invitation, and we've been able to work together on many matters, bilateral, regional, multilateral, and moved as well because the relationship with your country and what your country represents, and this we could see when we arrived, and these steps themselves tell about your history or part of your history. This is something to which I was referring to earlier on today. The ability of the African continent to grasp its own destiny and to structure the battles of the end of its battles of the end of the 20th century, and to do that with bravery, determination, and inspiration. I'm aware that South Africa is a country of various histories and remembrance. It is a matter of reconciliation, a country of pain, reconciliation, tradition, and innovation. And I very much admire the way your country is enabled both to deal with current challenges while embracing all of this diversity, a huge diversity. I believe that yourself, you speak 8 of the 11 languages of your country. And it is both a source of inspiration and of respect. And I'm being told that I believe that in your culture, ambition and is very important, and I hear there is an ancient word of Khoisan origin, yapo, which means that one dream together, and that there is no dream until it is shared by all of the community. And it is with around this concept that I very much would like to structure what we intend to do at a bilateral level, but in more general terms, everything we'd like to do and the way we would like to approach together the challenges of the continent. Together with President Ramaphosa, and like I was saying earlier, we talked about the fact that I'm convinced that our challenge is to help Africa succeed, and in particular the African youth. It is a huge opportunity for the continent and for the relationship between Africa and Europe, but that requires a level of investments, of unprecedented investments and transformation. And that very much at a time when we're facing with challenges which only a few generations had to deal with. So we want to do it together. So the first question is, how together can we upgrade the cooperation, financial, economic cooperation with Africa, between Africa and the rest of the world. Such was the purpose of this summit last week in Paris, and we want to make sure that the international community, first of all, mobilizes in order to help Africa between now and 2025, so that we reach the 280 billion that are lacking as a result of the COVID crisis. So we will, that's the minimum, the absolute minimum. So we will issue the new special drawing rights of the IMF, and France committed to make sure that Africa gets at least 100 billion out of it, and by reallocating part of what goes to the rich countries. Next, it is about reorganizing the debts of all the countries, not just the Western countries, but also all of the other countries, the G20 countries, reallocate, reorganize the debt, and then we also need to rethink the debts that apply to the fiscal rules with Africa. China is reviewing its rules, and Europe as well, and we can't keep applying standards of the 1980s. Lastly, we need to step up entrepreneurship, and we need with that have more private investments, and this is the reason why Mokhtar Diab, the head of the International Financial Society, is together with me today. So this is our strategy of financing, and we want to do that together. And this is pretty much what we did with ACTA at the beginning of the health crisis last year. We wanted to do health as well as we now need also an economic answer. Next, something else that is at the heart of our cooperation, vaccines and health. I will not get back to everything I already said, but we want to build a very strong partnership in order to speed up the giving doses and technology transfers that will enable to step up production capacity in South Africa and in Africa, and find solutions to issues of intellectual property, which should certainly not slow down things. So we, to that effect, will take an initiative within the G7, but also, as of today, we will jointly take some initiatives to bring about some financing in order to step up the capacity of a number of African partners. And let me not forget the rest of the solution in the health when it comes to the health matter. We decided to increase and to provide the French Development Agency will provide 2 billion euros of assistance to strengthen the primary health care system. We also want to help on diagnosis and therapeutical elements, and we'll work on that. And there will be a number of Franco-African partnership still on the occasion of this visit as well. Third element regarding our joint response to current challenges within the context of our partnership. It is about employment, and in particular the employment of young people. We need to reinvent our growth models, and in particular also deal with energy transition and the climate change. In this respect, France and the European Union stand ready to support South Africa in different ways. First of all, in very concrete terms, by articulating our international agenda together, and we already began working on that. When it comes as well to conservation of the biodiversity and climate change, having some joint initiatives. Next, financing some renewable energy projects or nuclear projects. We talked about all of that, and there are a number of French companies which were selected back in March for some renewable energy projects, and we very much want to sincerely support the energy transition of South Africa, while helping as well to create more jobs or new jobs in the field. And this is also our philosophy. We will work together. We will support by 200 million euros, support the issuance of first green bonds in South Africa. So it means that we will have a sustainable commitment to the transition of South Africa towards a low-carbon economy. And then there is DESCOM, and we will continue to support this transition, which is presently geared towards the future. So somehow it is an ever closer cooperation between our economies, and it is not just for these subjects I just mentioned. We are more and more present. French companies in 2019 and 2020 increased substantially their presence and their investments. There are some 350 French companies in South Africa. That represents some 65,000 jobs directly, and they will continue to support your projects to increase the growth. But we also want to do more in terms of vocational training, and to that effect, Schneider Electric will train thousands of electricians within 5 years. Alstom committed to training some 18,000 South African, and we are launching this afternoon a new program
Et de la même manière, le
in order
programme
to help
France Academia, également lancé ce jour,
to create some new
a pour
skills.
objectif de contribuer à la formation de 25 millions
It
de
is
jeunes
the
sur le
so-called
continent.
French skills program
Nous
to
avons
help
aussi une
train
coopération
thousands of young people on the
scientifique
continent.
exceptionnelle.
We also have an
La France va
outstanding
rejoindre
scientific
l'Organisation
cooperation,
internationale
and
Square
France
Kilometre Array,
will be joining the
projet
Square
de
Kilometre
méga-télescope
Array
qui vous
project.
est cher,
It
Président.
is the project
nous
of a
avons, en
mega
matière
telescope,
d'archéologie,
which is dear to
climatologie,
you, Mr.
d'océanographie, de
President.
sciences médicales
We
et
also
autres,
have
des
some
coopérations
projects
que
in
nous
the
continuons
field
de
of archaeology,
renforcer.
climatology,
Dans le cadre de ces
oceanography,
coopérations,
and medical
permettez-moi aussi
sciences.
d'évoquer notre
Please
coopération
allow me
culturelle.
to also refer to
En
our
effet,
cultural
nous avons
cooperation.
lancé la saison
Indeed,
Africa 2020
we launched the Africa
qui sera en
season
France jusqu'en
2020
septembre prochain
that
et qui a
will
mobilisé
take
beaucoup
place in France
d'artistes, de
until
créateurs
September, and there's
sud-africains
so
par un
many
très gros travail.
South African
Nous allons
artists
continuer sur ce
involved,
sujet vraiment
thanks to a lot
de
of work.
mobiliser à la
So
fois
we
la
shall
jeunesse,
continue to
les
keep
artistes,
mobilizing
en particulier
young people, the
avec la
artists in
perspective
particular,
du sommet de
with
Montpellier.
having in
Parce
mind
que
the summit
il y a ici
to
des
take
talents,
place in Montpellier,
auxquels
south
nous
of
sommes
France,
extrêmement attachés
because
et,
there's so many talents that are very
qui,
dear
je
to
crois,
us.
sont
And
à la fois être
I
mieux
believe
connus en France,
they
mais qui
should
nous
be
aideront
better
aussi
known in
à nouer
France,
ce
and that
partenariat
also
humain
will help us
beaucoup
build
plus fort.
this
Enfin, le dernier
stronger
pilier
human partnership.
que nous voulons développer,
The
c'est celui
very
d'une
last
association
pillar we
étroite pour
want
régler les
to
crises régionales.
develop is
On a
that
évoqué
of
avec la
a
première
strong
question sur le
cooperation to
Mozambique.
deal with the
Et
regional
notre volonté
crisis.
de développer
We talked
en
about
commun
Mozambique, but the
des
aim
éléments de
is
réponse,
to
parce que
put
la
together some
philosophie qui est la mienne depuis 4 ans,
response
c'est de considérer que
packages.
la France
Because
est
my
amie de l'Afrique.
philosophy is that France is a
Un
friend
problème
of
africain
Africa.
est un
An
problème de la
African
France.
issue is an issue for
Mais
France.
nous devons tous comprendre qu'aucun problème
But
ne se règle
we shall all
quand on ne
understand
respecte pas la
that one
souveraineté d'un État.
cannot
Et
deal
quand
with
on
an
n'essaie pas
issue,
d'abord de trouver
find any
une
solution
solution régionale
without
à la crise. Et
respecting
donc,
the
le
sovereignty
cœur de notre
of
réponse
the
a
relevant
toujours été
country.
de venir en
And
soutien,
first
en
we need
assistance
regional
et à la
solutions.
demande
So France stands
des
ready
États,
to help, but
de
at the
leurs instances
request
régionales
of
et de l'Union africaine.
the states,
Et
the
c'est dans cet
governments,
esprit-là
the regional
que nous voulons
institutions,
travailler
and
ensemble
in particular
sur les
within the
prochains
context
mois
of the African
sur la
Union.
situation du
This is
Mozambique,
what we
mais
will be
aussi
in this context that
porteront
we
naissance avec cette
will be
idée,
working
justement,
on the issue of
de construire
Mozambique.
cet espace de paix et de stabilité.
And we very much want to contribute to building a space of security and stability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Macron. I'd like to start off by expressing our gratitude for your presence and your visit here in South Africa. We're truly honored and elated that you could spare time to come here to not only hold official talks with us, but also to come and launch a particular project. So we're really pleased that you could come visit us for a state visit, however short it has been. Our discussions spanned over a number of issues. They touched on COVID, which we have already discussed quite a bit, and correctly so, as President Macron has said, on climate change, on global peace and security, but also revolved around the relations between our two countries. You already saw that our two countries continue to get better and better at relating with each other. Our two ministers signed an agreement, and there have been many others. And the issues that we cooperate on have to do with the economy, for instance, on trade and skills, and also on the Square Kilometre Array, which we are delighted that France is going to be part of all this. It is on the COVID-19 that we are feeling France's keen support and solidarity in that they are prepared to take the lead, to advocate Africa's case. And let me say that, yes, France is seen as a friend of Africa. And President Macron fits into that role so well and so easily, because he'd like, yes, the entire continent to succeed. And we want to promote good relations with France on an ongoing basis. And it is for this reason that we are also willing to cooperate together on a number of forums in the world, at multilateral level, the United Nations, the G20, the G7, and we also welcome the fact that France has a number of relations with a number of countries on the continent. What I do appreciate is that President Macron has demonstrated that he is willing to listen to what African leaders are saying about the challenges that we face. And he's not seeking to ride roughshod over our own views. And he respects the sovereignty of African countries. And that distinguishes him very well from others, because he listens and he takes in the message. And on the issue of the waiver of trips, I had a discussion with him, and he got the gist of what we were saying and putting forward, and was willing to accommodate our views. And it is therefore very good to have a partner like President Macron, who will be standing with us as we advocate various positions that will be to the advantage and to the benefit of our continent. Now, South Africa and France enjoy an in-depth, diverse, dynamic, and strategic partnership that spans across a number of areas and sectors. We've got a number of French companies that are present in our market here, our economy, and we've seen great cooperation from France as the government to be willing to enhance those relationships and make them deeper and better. And he speaks with great passion when it comes to youth empowerment, youth skills development, and this is precisely what one appreciates with what President Macron's approach is all about. And also want to welcome his initiative when he called a summit in Paris just 2 weeks ago, where we held a summit to discuss the financing of African economies. And at that meeting, we articulated the viewpoint that it isn't fair that your more developed economies have up to $650 billion of special drawing rights, and Africa has just been offered $33 billion. And he has taken the message in and understands where we are coming from, but I'd like to stretch him a little again. He has offered and said that maybe $100 billion would be good. As a good friend, I want to stretch him and say 25% of that 650 billion would do just nicely. It would come to 162 billion rand. So, President Macron, over dinner, you and I are going to take out our calculators and work out what I think should be the right figure. So we have support on an important issue like this, which is really going to be to the benefit of our economies on the continent. And it is good that he appreciates and understands where Africa is, and he would like to support Africa to succeed. And it is in that regard that we really welcome your visit to Rwanda and to South Africa, because for us this is important. It's a clear demonstration of what you have said you support. And of course, we would want to also enjoy your support on the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and to enable our trade area to succeed in more ways than one as well. And also in promoting and helping and supporting our entrepreneurs, small and medium enterprises, so that you send a clear message to French companies here that we would like them to give as much support as they possibly can to the small and medium enterprises. What you have offered on working together on climate change, we welcome, because climate change is an area where we see a great economic potential for our own country, and would like to work with you in that regard to meet all these global environmental challenges, and also be guided by science, but it should also be done on the principles of equity and fairness as well. President Macron, we also welcome your approach to dealing with the security situation on our continent, that we appreciate, respecting the sovereignty of our various governments, but being willing to pledge solidarity, to assist as much as you can from a number of points of view, both humanitarian, technical, expertise, and otherwise. So we welcome this. For me, this has been a wonderful visit, which also solidifies a good friendship that has evolved between myself and President Macron. We generally see things more or less in the same way, and are quite supportive on a number of areas and a number of issues. So we will continue working together, and for our two countries, this forms a very solid foundation to continue strengthening the relations between South Africa and France. And I really am delighted that you are here, my good friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we go home now?
Merci.
Thank you. Where do we go now?
We go to the university now.
Ah, yeah.
All right, live visuals there from the Union Buildings in Pretoria.